Coming up in this issue of Marlborough magazine, the growing problem of Lyme disease and how to protect yourself. And we'll give you some tips on flag.
Hello, and welcome to Marlborough Magazine. I'm Susan Long. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any ideas for stories or comments about the show, please contact us at marlboroughmagazine@yahoo.com or call us at 508-481-1373. Well, summer is finally here, but before you hit the hiking trails and the summer outings, you should be aware of a disease that can be very serious and is also on the rise here in Marlborough. Marlborough Magazine's Sophie Burke is going to tell us what Lyme disease is, how you can get it, and how you can guard against it.
I always felt like I had the flu. All I wanted to do was come home from Boston, get under my electric blanket because I was always cold, and I just ate.
Like I was so, like I'd been run over by a truck and slugged in the head with a baseball bat. I had trouble moving, had trouble thinking, I was hurting.
And people think it's my blindness that's hard to handle. It's not. It's the Lyme. When my Lyme is quiet, or my, tick-borne disease, I can handle the blindness fine because I'm healthy. And it's much more difficult to have Lyme disease than to have sight loss, at least for me.
Linda, Warren, and Mimi's lives were all radically changed by a tick bite. Each of them has Lyme disease. The most common tick-spread disease in the United States, Lyme disease affects about 16,000 people nationally, with over 10% of those cases in Massachusetts.
Although Marlborough doesn't have as many Lyme disease cases as some places in Massachusetts, such as Cape Cod, the numbers are growing. And for Marlborough Public Health Nurse Nancy Cleary, that's a cause for concern.
We've had cases for several years. I can't tell you exactly the first year that I started reporting on Lyme disease, but I have noticed an increase in the last few years, and that's the reason for some concern. The reported cases to me in 2000, I only received 3 reports. In 2001, I received 8 reports. In 2002, I received 21 reports.
As of this May, Nancy had received 4 reports of Lyme disease in Marlborough, but the Lyme disease season is far from over. 51% of Lyme disease cases are reported in June and July.
We are trying to make people more aware that it is here in Marlborough, because so many of the cases that I've had, people will say that, I've asked them if they've gone to a high-risk area, and they said, no, we haven't been out of Marlborough in so many months.
People contract Lyme disease when they are bitten by a deer tick that is carrying the Lyme disease bacteria. Not all deer ticks carry the Lyme bacteria, but if you're bitten by a tick that does, you may develop a variety of flu-like symptoms, joint pain, and a rash.
It's a circular rash, and it has sort of a clear area in the middle, and it's commonly called a bullseye type rash because it looks like a target. And that is very distinctive for Lyme disease. We will actually go ahead and treat people in the emergency department for Lyme disease just based on finding of that rash alone. Commonly, some people will have that rash and also feel tired, will have muscle aches, may have headaches, general achiness in their bones and their muscles, and then you can pretty much be sure that that's what you're dealing with, that you've got Lyme disease.
When Warren was bitten by a deer tick that was carrying the Lyme disease bacteria, he developed the bullseye rash.
It was about 3-4 inches in diameter, very red, and with a clear spot in the middle, so it looks sort of like a donut. It was on my arm.
But neither Linda nor Mimi had a rash, although they did have other symptoms of Lyme.
Yes, it is tricky because the problem is not everybody will have that rash. About 80% of people, when they have Lyme disease, will present with a rash along with those other symptoms.
If Lyme disease isn't treated as early as possible, the disease can progress and become far more damaging than the initial symptoms.
I think it's of concern because of the disease can have some develop into more serious diseases other than the initial symptoms, fever and headache and stiff neck, sore glands, those types of things. But if it's left untreated, it can go on to affect the heart.
Linda, who has an advanced case of Lyme disease, did have heart problems.
It did affect my heart. I had some, a lot of irregularities and skip beats.
People can develop arthritis. Actually, 60% of people who go untreated develop arthritis of the large joints. And it can also affect the nervous system. Serious serious situations like meningitis, Bell's palsy.
Linda also experienced Bell's palsy. I felt like my mouth wasn't working, like trying to take a sip on a cup of coffee. It was just kind of like drooling. And it just, and my eye was drooping. I just didn't, and then I looked in the mirror and I could see it.
Linda, Warren, and Mimi all have that later stage of Lyme disease that has public health workers so worried. Their chronic Lyme was the result of a lag time between when they contracted the disease and when they got treated for it. In Mimi and Linda's case, that gap was many years. In Warren's case, it was a matter of weeks.
I was first given a 3-week course of antibiotics.
Yeah.
And during those 3 weeks, I was doing a lot of research and getting some opinions other than the standard opinion, which was that 2 weeks of antibiotics would take care of any Lyme disease. So I pretty much begged the doctor to please continue the treatment for another 3 weeks. Also because my symptoms, even though they had gotten somewhat better, were far from resolved. So he agreed, and after that he was not willing to prescribe any further antibiotics, and I started declining into what became the very worst period of my life. Putting it all together, I had a gap of about 6 months during which I had no treatment, and I was having a very hard time. I was definitely able to physically get up and go to work during my worst periods. But I have to say that there were many times when it was so difficult, just the thought of getting up out of a chair seemed like an overwhelming task. Seemed harder than climbing a mountain. And I know how ridiculous this sounds, and if I hadn't experienced it myself, I wouldn't believe it. It's hard to explain. How can that happen? Why would you feel that way? But it was extremely hard to do anything. It was even hard to think, as I said before, or to read and to follow the meaning of the writing from one sentence to the next and from one paragraph to the next, or even to follow a conversation just to remember what somebody had said 30 seconds ago and then relate that to what they're saying now. It was very hard to put concepts together, very hard to do anything physically or mentally.
Mimi's life was also profoundly affected by Lyme disease. Her vision loss occurred at a time when few people had heard of Lyme, but Mimi suspects that Lyme disease is the cause of her blindness.
But it came on suddenly, and the genetic diseases do not come on like that. I just suddenly looked out the window and had, on my 32nd birthday, it happened on the day of April 22nd, 1962, and that was 2 weeks after a flu-like illness.
Because the later stage symptoms of Lyme disease can be so debilitating, health workers emphasize that prevention, as well as early treatment, is key.
A lot of this is prevention. People need to be educated on how to avoid getting tick bites in the first place and then what to do correctly when they do get a tick bite.
The ticks that transmit the Lyme bacteria, deer ticks, are tiny, black, and have 8 legs. Deer ticks go through 3 life stages. When they are larvae, they are barely visible. After the larvae has had its first blood meal, it becomes a nymph. Nymphs are about the size of a turns into an adult, the tick becomes about the size. The adult female ticks have red on their backs.
Ticks live in grass and duff and under leaves and in the woods, so they're kind of everywhere. They
you probably will pick them up mostly on tall grass and as you're walking through the woods. They don't jump, they don't hop, they don't fly, they just drop on you, or if you brush across a piece of a branch or a piece of grass, that's how they, they get onto your body, and then they crawl up. Walking, running, sitting on the grass, sitting on a stone wall, sitting on a little bridge that's next to a stream, even on a bench or a place where a dog might have brushed off a tick that has dropped it off. So it's where it could have been carried at any time you're passing through, and mostly in the woods, I would say, but also in fields as well.
Experts say that a good way to prevent a tick from biting you is to minimize skin exposure. If you're going to be outside in wooded or grassy areas, tuck your pants into your socks and wear a long-sleeve shirt. Also, wear light-colored clothing. This makes the ticks easier to see. Tick checks are also recommended.
I'm out all the time for my work and for pleasure, so so I take the precautions of making sure that when I get home, I check, in my hairline, because they like to kind of come up your legs and find the creases in your bodies to kind of nestle in. And usually you can feel them after they've been on you for a little bit. You can feel these little bumps, and you know that that's a tick and you should take it off.
If a tick does crawl onto your skin, it's important to pull it out as soon as possible. It's estimated that the tick has to be attached for 24 to 48 hours before the Lyme disease bacteria will enter you. Make sure to get a pair of tweezers and gently pull out with a steady pressure. The object is to keep parts, even if you pull out some of your own skin.
And I went out and did an inspection yesterday, and I found a tick on me yesterday afternoon, and I thought, oh, it's ready, it's time.
But people aren't the only ones who should be checked for ticks.
Owners just need to be aware when they are out having fun in the yards and in the woods to also check, besides themselves, like everyone already knows, you have to also check your pet.
Your pet could have a tick on them, which could crawl off and potentially bite you. But it's also possible that your pet itself could catch Lyme disease.
We don't see it in cats, but we do see it in dogs. And what we're seeing in the dogs is that it happens much more quickly from exposure. Within 7 to 10 days, they start to show some clinical signs. First thing is that owners are aware that something just isn't right with their dogs, because they'll be really quiet and lethargic at home. They usually start to spike a fever, and so they're not as active and as playful as they normally are. It affects their joints also very quickly. So an animal dog who usually is running around in the yard playing just wants to be mellow and sleep, because it's a multiple joint involvement where it causes inflammation and discomfort. So the owners know something is wrong with their animals and have a suspicion, bring them down for an exam.
And just as Lyme disease is growing amongst Marlborough's human population, it's also growing amongst Marlborough's pet population.
It's certainly on the rise. Now, an animal or dog can be exposed and not show clinical signs. We've had many cases where a blood test is done, shows that there is exposure, but yet these animals are not acting sick, they're not having any joint involvement, they don't need to be treated. Just as with some people, when they are out in the woods, there may be an exposure, but not getting sick from it.
And just like in humans, early treatment is key.
And it can affect the heart and the kidneys, and then it gets to damage that can't be reversible. But it would take some time, and it would have to be, obviously, the dog showing a lot of clinical signs before it gets to that stage.
But in addition to tick checks, both humans and animals have another way to fight against Lyme disease. You can use insect repellents like these on your skin or on your clothes. Look for repellents that contain DEET, which is a powerful chemical that kills ticks. But DEET can be potentially harmful if used incorrectly, so it's important to follow the instructions on the label.
But even if you do use these precautions and a tick still bites you, don't panic. The tick that bit you might not have been carrying the Lyme disease bacteria.
It's important to know and to remember that it's the tick that, it's not the tick that makes you sick. It's the thing that the tick is carrying that makes you sick. So by the same, you can think of it as the same token that when someone sneezes on you, it doesn't transmit a cold to you, it transmits a virus that causes a cold.
Dr. Stephen Ridge is a Lyme disease researcher at the Tufts University School of Veterinary Medicine. Together with a team of scientists at Yale University, he is trying to find a way to prevent the thing that ticks carry, a bacteria called a spirochete, from finding its way into humans.
You can break down the way that the ticks live from the way that the bacterium lives, okay? I'm going to call the bacterium a spirochete just because I'm used to that. So the spirochete, the Lyme disease spirochete, has a life cycle in which it moves from a mouse to a tick to a mouse to a tick to a mouse. That's its life cycle.
Because ticks first acquire the Lyme disease bacteria when it bites a mouse, Dr. Rich is looking for a way to prevent the mouse from giving it to the tick.
So one of the things we're trying to do now is to develop wildlife vaccines that will vaccinate vaccinate mice against the Lyme disease spirochete.
If the mouse is free of the Lyme disease bacteria, then the mouse won't give it to a tick. And if a tick doesn't get it, the tick won't give it to a human.
The next step, we think, an important step, will be to develop vaccines that actually protect mice and, in some cases, people from being bitten on by ticks. So much the same way you get vaccinated for influenza or, in the old days, polio, and any number of other diseases, it may be possible to vaccinate people against tick bites so that ticks can't feed and transmit not only Lyme disease but all the different agents that they carry with them.
Science has come a long way since Linda, Warren, and Mimi were diagnosed. But until science can find a way to prevent ticks from giving Lyme disease to humans, it's important to take precautions.
The worst thing I would feel would be the worst thing is that people decide to stay in their houses all the time and not go exploring, the nature that's around us, because it is beautiful and it does sort of revive us. And so what I think the best message is, yes, they're here. Yes, we should be aware of them. And these are the ways that you avoid being sick. But you can still go out and enjoy nature, not be petrified by it.
For more information about Lyme disease, you can contact the Marlborough Board of Health at 508-460-3752 or the Massachusetts Department of Public Health at 1-888-658-2850. From Marlborough Magazine, I'm Sophie Burke.
Thank you, Sophie. In the month of June, we have Flag Day. Marlborough Magazine would like to present you with some tips of flag etiquette.
And I'm the President of the Veterans Council and the first Vice Commander of the AMVETS, Marlborough, post 1980.
My name is Frank King. I'm a veteran of World War II. I was also a prisoner of war for 19 months, and I'm awful glad to be back.
My name is Frank Bolt. I'm representing the veterans of foreign wars here in the town of post 638, and we do take care of our veterans, and we help in the parade and things that go on in the town. I also belong to the veterans and the AMVETS, as I'm a War II and a D-Day survivor. Thank you.
I'm John Brown, veteran of World War II, past commander and life member of the Disabled American Veterans.
And we're going to talk a little bit about flag etiquette today. On June 14, 1777, Congress passed an act stating that the flag of the 13 United States be 13 stripes, alternated red and white. The Union be 13 stars, white and a blue field represented a new constellation. June 14th is the birthday of the U.S. flag, and in remembrance, Flag Day is celebrated every year on this day. I hope you've noticed the Honor Guard pays meticulous attention to correctly fold the American flag 13 times.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
specially trained for
But
that.
why?
And you probably
Why
thought it
13?
was to symbolize the original 13 colonies, but we learn something new every day. Be surprised at the following only because they quit teaching this around 1955 in public schools. Some of you out there might remember. The first fold of our flag is the symbol of life. The second fold is the symbol of our belief in eternal life. The third fold is made in honor and remembrance of the veterans departing our ranks who gave a portion of their lives for the defense of our country to attain peace throughout the world. The fourth fold represents our weaker nature, for as American citizens trusting in God, it is to Him we turn in times of peace as well in time of war for His divine guidance. The fifth fold is a tribute to our country, for in the words of Stephen Decaur, our country, in dealing with other countries, may she always be right, but it is still our country, right or wrong. The sixth fold is for where our hearts lie. It is with our hearts that we pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The seventh fold is a tribute to our armed forces, for it is through the armed forces that we protect our country and our flag against all her enemies, whether they be found within or without the boundaries of our republic. The eighth fold is a tribute to the one who entered into the valley of the shadow of death, that we might see the light of day. The ninth fold is a tribute to womanhood and mothers, for it has been through their faith, their love, loyalty and devotion that the character of men and women who have made this country great has been molded. The 10th fold is a tribute to the fathers, for they too have given their sons and daughters for the defense of our country since they were first born. The 11th fold represents the lower portion of the seal of King David and King Solomon and glorifies in the Hebrew eyes and the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The 12th fold represents an emblem of eternity and glorifies in the Christian eyes God of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. The 13th fold, or when the flag is completely folded, the stars are upmost, reminding us our nation's motto, "In God We Trust." After the flag is completely folded and tucked in, it takes on the appearance of a cocked hat, ever reminding of us the soldiers who served under General George Washington and the sailors or Marines who served under Captain John Paul Jones, who were followed by their comrades and shipmates into the armed forces of the United States, preserving for us the rights, privileges, and freedoms we enjoy today. There are some traditions and ways of doing things have deep meaning. In the future, you'll see flags folded, and now you'll know why.
Amen.
Amen.
If it's on a pole out on your house that's affixed, you can leave it out with a light on it overnight. If it's on a pole that's mounted in the ground and up, you must take it down and put it up night after night, and day after day, whichever way you want to phrase it.
But the hoist is briskly in the morning and ceremoniously at night.
Yeah, that's what I say. So there are, people don't realize it. There's a lot of respect due the flag, and they don't receive the respect, the flag doesn't, of these people. And there's quite a story about this old man that was watched out. There was a bunch of these young demonstrators on the street against the country doing something.
I have that home.
And the gun, he'd come out of the house with his old World War II jacket on himself and a shotgun. And he told a young fellow that was standing there what the flag meant and what it stood for. And then at the very end of it, he says, "I have one shot in this shotgun. If you do not respect the flag, I will shoot and leave." And that's the way he left it. And they said the whole crowd quietly disbanded and walked away. Right. It's things like that you hear about, and like the old man that's in Missouri that talked about his flag being tattered and torn. And what he said to the people was, "I sit here and watch my flag. It's tattered and sore. It has seen many battles on land, in ship, and he says, now in my old age I see it in the air. He says, so what will be next? But that flag will be grand and glorious forever.
The flag of the United States is never used as drapery. It is displayed hung flat against a wall or flown free from a staff. It is not fastened over doorways or arches, tied in a bow, or fashioned into a rosette. It is not used to cover a speaker's desk or draped over the front of a platform. For these purposes, bunting may be used, giving the blue of the bunting the place of honor at the top of the arrangement or in the center of the rosette. Traditionally, there is one permissible departure from the rules for displaying the flag of the United States. In a dire emergency, the flag may be flown upside down as a distress signal.
Yeah, we're under attack.
Yeah. Also, if you notice the parades, the American flag is up ahead of everybody else.
Correct.
In the color guard. First you get the American flag, then you get all your post colors afterwards, the other flags, but the American flag leads it.
And another thing is, when you, police officers standing on the side, when that flag goes by, they must present arms and then honor arms and all the way up the street that's supposed to happen. Yeah. And this has been always a personal gripe with me, is vehicle. It says the flag should not be draped over the hood, top, sides, or back of a vehicle or a railroad train or a boat. When the flag is displayed on a motor car, the staff shall be fixed firmly to the chassis or clamped to the right fender. And I just don't buy it because my son does it, and it irks me no more. But the thing is, within a week, 3 weeks, the flag is all flayed and patted out. Some flags are made a little bit better, they last a little longer. But then you see this flag going through the town, and you get the intense desire to walk over and pick it up and take it off the car and just walk over and put it in a trash barrel if you get yourself ticked off about it.
The retirement of the flags is
But now with this retirement system we got here in the city of Marlborough, which I've never heard in another city yet that I know of, that I think it's a tremendous respect and way to go.
We put these 2 boxes out. There's one in the Walker Building here, and there's one down at the post office. And we put it in the paper that we were going to do this, and we had a little ceremony down at the Bigelow School. And within a month, I had over 1,500 flags collected in those boxes that have been retired in the proper manner. And I'm still going down once a week and taking flags out of those boxes, so it's really working very well.
Yeah, but what do you do with all the sticks?
I'd burn them too. You got to start a fire with something.
That's it for this issue of Marlborough Magazine. If you have any questions, ideas, or comments, please feel free to contact us at marlboroughmagazine@yahoo.com or call us here at the station at 508-481-1373. Thank you for joining us. I'm Susan Laufer.